At the Mishnah. By the way, to the Soy Mishtalech. So he came to the Soy Mishtalech, the Soy which is supposed to be sent La Azazel. The Samach Shteyod of Allah, and he placed his two hands upon it, and he's Vada, and he said Vidui. But Kacha Yoimin is that we used to say, Oh, Hashem, Avu Pashu, Chatu Lefanecha. There's sin before you. Amcha Beis Yisrael, your nation of Israel. Ona Hashem Kapir, it should be Ona Bashem, of course. Ona Bashem Kapir Nova Goymer. It's the Yerushalmi said previously, the second time he said Ona Bashem, in the name, as opposed to Hashem, the name. Tani Bar Kapara Avu Pashu Chatu. Interesting, Bar Kapara says you said Avu Pashu Chatu, but you don't mention Beis Yisrael. Shlo Lahaske Gnu Yisrael. It's not to say that Jews are sinners. So you say Ona Hashem, Avu Chatu Pashu Lefanecha, whatever it is, Kapir no, without saying without specifying the Jewish nation. Ad Masu Yuchaya. Till when does the sawyer have to stay alive? The sawyer Mishtalech. So says Gemara, Ad B'Kil Michaper Sakodesh, Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. You has to stay alive until you complete the order of the Avodah, including the Vidui. Rabbi Shimon Omer Ad Shasa Vidui, up to, but not including the Vidui. The Vidui is not essential according to him. All right, you could have to do. You just need to, in other words, basically, to have the Soyer LaHashem, Soyer LaZazel alive until such time as you have completed avodah at the Soyer LaHashem. You're prepared, about to do vidui. If it drops dead, then that's okay. He doesn't actually have to remain alive for the vidui. The vidui is essential, so that's why he must remain alive until after the vidui component. Rabbi Shimon and the vidui is not essential. What's the difference? If you sent it away without doing vidui. The Rabbi Yehuda, you have to bring another goat because the vidui is essential. The Rabbi Shimon you don't have to bring another goat because the vidui is not essential. So too, the same thing is true about the bull, where there were two viduyim, right? There was a vidui for Aaron and a vidui for the Kohanim. Shachta below vidui. If you shachta below vidui, al daita Rabbi tzarich lavi par acher. You have to bring another par because vidui is essential. Daita Rabbi Shimon ain't tzarich lavi par acher. Rabbi Shimon, there's no need to bring another par because the vidui is not essential. Okay, now of course the one I was going to say. Nizvada v'shachto. What happens if you did the vidui and you slaughtered the bull, not the Lazazel, of course you don't slaughter, right? V'nishpach adam, and then the blood spilled. Okay. Now, of course, v'adam tzarich levi paracher. You have to bring another bull to do the avodas inside, right? Tzarich lizvados olapam shnio kfar yotze vidui sharishon. Would you have to do a second vidui because this is the part for which you're going to do the matan adamim? Or the first video was enough, right? It's obviously a very basic question. Of course, Yerushalmi doesn't answer basic questions. Similarly, we can ask a question which we're not going to answer. The Soy Mishalech, if it drops dead too early, do you have to do a hagrola a second time? Or you ready to have to do a second lottery, or do you ready yotze with the first lottery? Now, this is talking about, of course, if it died after the soil, I'm assuming, if it died after the soil, you already did the avodos, and in the middle, right? You already did the soil avodos Hashem, and all you're lacking, say, is the vidui, according to Rabbi Shimon, who requires it. So at that point, you have to do another hagrola, right? It's we learned before, if the soil Hashem dies premature to all that voice, and of course you need another hagrola. But here already the soil Azazel has been extant for some time, right? And the soil Hashem, you're not going to do a new soil Hashem, right? So therefore, it's a question we have to do new hagrola just for the soil Azazel. The Yerushalmi leaves that as an open question. Okay? Masal mishum alicho. So he gave it to the guy who's supposed to take it. Everybody can take it. The Kohen made a permanent custom. They never let a regular Jew take it, only Kohen. Rabbi Yosef said, once there was a case where the guy took it whose name was Arsla from Tziporin, Yisrael, and he was a Yisrael. Now, I remember, from somewhere. I don't know if it's quote from the Zohar or somewhere else. Maybe it's in the Bible, but I don't think so. They always chose somebody who had to die that year, because the person who took the Sarah Mishtalech would not survive the year. That's what I remember from somewhere. I don't remember exactly where it's from. It's not in the Yerushalmi, so I don't know where it's from. But there is such a Agadita. Okay? In any event, B'shach b'yad ish, it says, send it in the hands of man. La'ach shiur sazor, means the Zohar is okay. Iti, it should be timely. Share asid. Yeah, maybe in the room. Do we have me? Okay. B'shach b'yad ish. Start with the Gemara again. B'shach b'yad ish. L'achshir Hazor tells us that any Zor can do it. Iti means timely. She should be prepared for this task. Iti Shem Mezuman should be designated for this task. Or it's going to ask, it's the same thing. Iti Ap B'Shabbos, timely, even if it's on Shabbos. Iti Ap B'Tuma, even if it's Tomei, even if there's Tumah Utra B'Tzibur for this. Ask him, Lohu Asid Hu Mezuman, isn't Asid destined for this task? The Zuma selected for this task aren't the same thing. Rather, one of the ET also means that only one person. You shouldn't send it in the hands of two people. Now, two people doesn't mean two people simultaneously, but rather you shouldn't take like a relay race. Give it to somebody else to. He should do the whole thing. He should do the whole thing from beginning to end, right? What if you did it into the hand of two different people? In other words, the first person gave it to the second person. Now, the person who takes the soil, his garments become tummy. He becomes tummy. His garments become tummy. This goes like paraduma. It's matami, the person who does it. So what about the second guy who does it? Is the first guy the only guy who comes tummy, or also the second guy if you did in fact send it to the other fellow? So it says, let's hear it from here. It's a Bryce, so it says, HaMishaleach, the person who sends. It should be Es HaMishaleach, not one after the other. Because really, even though you take it all the way to a cliff, you're Yotzei if it just, you would just take it right outside Yerushalayim. So therefore, the second guy is superfluous, and that's why he's not Matami B'Godim. He's not essential to the process. Adamras teaches us, Shilchel B'Yachnayim, Eino Matami B'Godim. Send it one, then in the hands of another one, it's not Matami B'Godim. Barach. Now, what if the animal fled? Now, this is an interesting thing we're going to see later on this Talmud, that after the days of Shimon HaTzadik's death, so the animals no longer cooperated. Once they left Yerushalayim, they just fled away. They didn't want to die. So since that's the case, what if the guy was taking it out and then it fled? So it depends. If Barach Derech Halicha, if it fled from him in the right direction, Matami B'Godim. So he fulfilled his task, he's Matami B'Godim. If Derech Hazira, if the animal fled from him in the wrong direction, going back to the Beis HaMikdash, ain't a Matami B'Godim, it's not Matami B'Godim, he's not Matami B'Godim because he didn't carry out his task, right? Shalus Rebelezer, ask Rebelezer, Chol HaShliach, what's the status of Shliach got sick and he sent it in the hands of somebody else? Armalem, so he said, Kachtu B'Shalom, may you never get sick. Okay, then he answered directly. What if the animal got sick? Can you pick up the animal and carry it? Armalem, so he said, the animal was very strong. In other words, again, he didn't answer. He said, the animal was so strong, it could carry me and you together. What if you pushed it off the cliff and it didn't die? Armalem, so he said, don't worry. What happened to him, so should happen to the enemies of heaven. So he didn't answer any of the questions, just evaded all the questions. So a very famous thing about Rabbi Lezer, Loshia Mafligam Bidvar, Loshia Rabbi Lezer Mafligam, it's not that Rabbi Lezer wanted to push them off. Ela Shaloya Medvarim Shalo Shamun Miyomov. He never said things that you didn't hear from his Rabbeim. Rabbi Lezer only said things that you heard from his Rabbeim, and this he never heard, so he didn't want to say over the answers Al Das Atzmo. So he just evaded answering the questions.
Now, in case the SAR does run away, do they have to get another? They have to have another go roll?
No, once it runs out to Yerushalayim, it's fine.
So what about the vidui?
The vidui is inside. Even the video we saw is opinion. Rabbi Shimon holds the video is not ma'akev. So even that's a machlokes. Certainly once it left Yerushalayim, that's fine. You don't need any more than that. So now, Chachami did answer the question. If the shliach got sick, Mashach could send in somebody else's tent. If the goat got sick, Markiva Chamor, you can bring it on a donkey. Donkey of Lameis, if you push it and it did not die, Yored Achra Miso, you got to go down the cliff and kill it. Kol Yomim Shoyat Shimon Tzadik Kayim, as long as Shimon Tzadik was alive, Loya Magil Machti Sahar, the goat would not reach halfway down the mountain until it broke apart into separate limbs. When Shimon Tzadik died, then the goat would flee to the desert. Asrikin and bandits so would find it and eat it after Yom Kippur, I hope. But in any event, it would not get killed by going down the cliff. Now, another few things that's our call. Shimon Tzadik was alive. The girl Hashem came up on the right hand. Mishamei Shimon Tzadik. When Shimon Tzadik died, small son came on the right hand, sometimes on the left hand. Kol Yom Shimon Tzadik Kaim. So Shimon Tzadik was alive. Hoya Nema Ravi Dolek, the western candle of Beis Hamikdash, stayed lit all day, all the time. Mishamei Shimon Tzadik. When Shimon Tzadik died, Pami Kava, Pami Dolek. Sometimes it stayed lit all day. Sometimes it went out. Kol Yom Shimon Tzadik Kaim. As long as Shimon Tzadik was alive, Loshen Shul Horis Malbin. The red thread used to turn white on Yom Kippur. B'Shemei Shimon Tzadik, when Shimon Tzadik died, Malbim, sometimes it could become white, sometimes it remained red, according to the Korban Eidim, might have even gotten redder, because their sins were so bad. Kol Yom Shimon Tzadik Chayim, Oram Aracham is Gaber V'Ola. The fire of the flames of the Korban Mizbeach would rise up and become very powerful. Mishayu nosim shnei gzirei b'shachas, once they put on the 2 logs in the morning. Lo yunosi kol yom, they needed not to put on any additional logs the entire day. Mishamei Shimon Tzadik, when Shimon Tzadik died, so then Tashash Kol Shemaracha, the power of the flames was diminished. Lo yunim noim lios nosim eita kol yom, they did not refrain from putting wood on the fire the entire day. Kol Yom Shimon Tzadik Kaim, as long as Shimon Tzadik was alive, there was a bracha on the 2 breads of Shavuos of Lechapanim and the 12 breads every week. Each coin got a kazayis. Some people ate and were satiated from the kazayis. So some people ate mosirin and left over because there was such a bracha in that bread. B'Shemei Shimon Tzadik, when Shimon Tzadik died, Nila bracha mishtei lechem lechem apayin, the bracha was taken away. Each person got a pea size, and therefore it's knowing the people who were modest, they then would refrain from taking gargaronim, and people who were ravenous, then would stick out their hands. Ma'aser b'koyin echad b'tziporin, it was a ma'aser in koyin and tziporin, so it was so ravenous. Shenotal chelko v'chelek chaveru, took his portion and the portion of his friend. V'yanikra ben Afun, he was called pea brain, ben Afun, son of the pea. Ad yom hazeh, until this day, David Amar, and Afun, a pea in Aramaic is chimtzei, and in fact the Bavli calls him ben chamtzon, and it's a play on the following pasuk. David says, Shamar David, Elokai, God, Paltani miyad Rasha, saving from an evildoer, mikaf me'avel v'chometz, from the hands of of somebody who was evil and somebody who was a chometz, somebody who was a grabber, a chapper. So therefore they call him Ben Afun, which either means the son of the pea, or Ben in Aramaic Ben Chimtze, which means also the son of a chapper. Tani, we learned that Abraham Shonat Shluchar Beis Hamikdash for the last 40 years before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. The western candle always went out. Veloshin Shoris Madim, and the red thread always became redder or remained red. The girls were shamed Ola Bismol, and the lot would for Hashem would always come up to the left end. And they would lock the doors of the Heichal in the evening. Umashkim him, and they wake up, Motzinos Absuchim, and they would find them open. as a sign that the doors are inviting the enemy into the Beis HaMikdash. Amalo Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, so Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said to the Heichal, Lama Tamav Vilena, Heichal, why are you frightening us? The only Manusha Sov Chalichar, we know that you're going to be destroyed. Shnema, Psach Levanot Lo Secha, we know that there's a sign, the Levanon, which is based on Mikdash, is called Lavnun. Open your doors, V'tochal Eshbar Ozecha, and fire will come into your cedars. We know this is a sign, but stop frightening us. Arboim Shimesh Shimna Tzadik Yisrael B'Kuna Gdola. For 40 years, Shimna Tzadik was the Kohen Gadol. V'shana Achroina Amar Lehen. The last year, he said to them, B'shana Zoni Mei. So this year I'm dying. We had earlier in the Masechta that he saw a figure of a black image, entering the Kachim with him, and he knew that it was a sign of Avelus because he was going to die. Amar, so they said, L'mi Nimna Acharecha, we're going to point after you. Armalan, so he said, "Arei nechonion b'nei lefnechem." Nechonion is known in the Bavli as Chonio, and you have my son Nechonion. Hochu minas Nechonion. So they went and they appointed Nechonion. V'kinei bo Shimon achiv. Shimon, his brother, was older, was jealous. V'alach, so Shimon went, and hilbisho unkla. He put on him a leather tunic, v'chagod tal, and wrapped him in a decorative belt, which was really what women wear. It was kind of a woman's garb. And Amrlan, and he said to the other Kohanim, Ru'uma Nordalava, so look what my brother Nechunion promised to his beloved. I mean, what? He said, he must have said to his beloved, when I serve as Kohen Gadol, Abish Nekla Shalach, I'll put on your tunic, V'achor b'tzaltzor shalach, and I'll put on your belt. In other words, he made it seem that that his brother Nechunion was going to go wear these garments, which obviously belong to a woman, into the Beis HaMikdash and do the avodah in that fashion, and that clearly was a desecration for romantic reasons.
This is where the Sephardim get this notion of naming the son after the father. There's two Shimons.
Oh, it's a good point, right? I didn't even notice that, right? It says Shimon and Shimon, that's right. Good point. Okay, Badkus Advarim, so they wanted to check it out and see if this is true. V'lo matzu, so they couldn't find the Chunyon. Amun, they said, Misham barach lahar HaMelech, from the Chunyon fled. He fled first to Har HaMelech, Misham barach Alexandria, then he fled to Alexandria, V'amar uvanasham izbech, and there he stood and built himself an altar, and that's called Mikdash Chonyo. That was a rival Beis HaMikdash. And Vikar Love is a pasuk, and he tried to bring a proof that he was practice was correct from following pasuk in Yeshaya. It says, "Bayomahu," on that day, Yer Mizbeach Lashem, there's going to be an altar for God, V'soch Eretz Mitzrayim, in the land of Egypt. Now, says Marvaret Foreign Kavachomer. There's a Kavachomer here. Mayim Zeshabarch Minas Rara. This Nechunion who fled from his office in Yerushalmi. Ruhech Nachzar, look how much he pursued it when he got to Egypt. Myself at the end, Mishu Nichnas, if he had actually entered into the office of Kohen Gadol, and served, Allah's come out, much more so would he have pursued this when he left Yerushalayim. Now, the problem with this story is that obviously in this case the Nechunion was innocent, and they just tried to get him on Trump to frame him. So it sounds kind of unfair. So Tani Rabbi Meir, this is Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Omer Lo, Ki Elaminu is Shimon. The opposite. Shimon was pointed to be Kohen Gadol. V'kinei bo Nechunion achiv, and Nechunion was the brother was jealous. V'achlu bishon nakla v'chagro tzal, and then Nechunion tried to frame Shimon, right, by putting him into these garments of a woman. Amle rumanod also b'chulei, and v'hech kadmaya. And then the story continues as previously. So the thing is that in this case, Nechunion fled. It's still Nechunion who fled, right? But in this case, he fled because he had tried to frame his brother, not because he was innocent, but rather because he was guilty. And Umayim Mishalo Nichlas Sora. if this guy Nechuniah, who never was Kohen Gadol, see how he brought Am Yisrael to Avodah Zarah, not really Avodah Zarah, but obviously to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a Beis HaMikdash in a foreign land for forbidden korbanos. Nishu Nichnas, so had he entered to be the Kohen Gadol, Nalach v'yotze, and had to been compelled to leave, Halachas kama, how much more so would we have expected him to do this terrible thing?
Does the Gemara comment about the Sarah and Mishtalech during the first Beis HaMikdash, whether they cooperated or whether the
I don't know if we had a Messiah on that, right? Never, to the best of my knowledge, it doesn't. We assume that it did cooperate, but I don't know if we have a Messiah on it.
Again, there was someone who was shy.
Right, certainly towards the end of the period, yeah. I don't know. No clear. We have not that I recall, at least. No evidence. It's a good question. The Kevasod, Lamadalid, the Kevasod Ilaminea Bavliim. They used to make him a ramp because of the Babylonians. Shumatashim Besaro used to pull his hair. They would say to him, Tovatzei, take the sawyer and get out of here, take the sawyer and get out of here. Because of the Averos which are represented. Yoki Yerushalmi, the nobility of Yerushalmi, so they would accompany him at Sukkah Rishona to the first Sukkah. Yud Sukkos Yerushalmi, first taught on the way. There were 10 Sukkos Yerushalmi from Yerushalmi out of Sukkah until the cliff. Tishim Ris, and they span a difference of 90 Ris. Shiva Mechtel Chol meal, 7.5 Ris in every 7.5 Ris in every meal, which means that there were 12 meal altogether. Okay, so I'll call Sukkah v'Sukkah, and when he came to each Sukkah, they would say to him, "Harei Mozam, Harei Mayim." Here's food and here's water, and Mulavino. So Misukkah l'Sukkah, and they would accompany him from Sukkah to Sukkah, Chutz min Achron shebayin, except for the last one. She'eino magiat Tzmo l'Sukkah. They do not go with him to the cliff. The reason is because the cliff was actually 4,000 amos from the last Sukkah, not 2,000 amos. So it was beyond Chum Shabbos to them, even though they could have made an Eruv, but they didn't make an Eruv. So they stood they stood from a distance, right, a meal away, Roes Maisav, and they saw what he did in pushing the animal down the cliff.
Did he have to lead? He couldn't lead the goat. He'd have to.
Oh, he did lead the goats.
That's pulling on without supposed to do that.
Why?
Shabbos.
This is part of that Avodah Sayom. So he's allowed to. He had a leash. Yeah. East Tani. I mean, the goats will get away in the second Beis HaMikdash, but theoretically he will lead. East Tani. Those learned that it wasn't a ramp, but rather kavash gufo. They made him some sort of shield to wear, because the Alexandrians would pelt him, to say, get out of here, like they would stone him. He's tiny kevish marash. Those who say it was a literal ramp in order that he should be able to leave Yerushalayim higher up than them, so they shouldn't pull his beard. Alexandra Yomim, it was really not the Babylonians, it was the Alexandrians who used to do this, but we call them Babylonians because we don't like Babylonians anyway. But Alexandrian Yomim said, Mosaitem told him, how long are you going to leave this iniquity with us in order to get out of here and take these Averos with us? Yerushalmi Yuma they're coming into the first Sukkah. Tani we learned Esa Sukkos Besoch Shnei Masar meal. According to our Mishnah, there were 10 Sukkos within 12 meal. Divir Meir. Rabbi Yehuda said a different version. It's a typo here. It should be not Eser, but rather Tesha. Tesha Sukkos Besoch Asar meal. There are 9 Sukkos, and 10 meals is a shorter distance. Rabbi Yossi Omer Chamesh. It says there are much less. There are only 5. The Kulhan they Eruv, and they're all by Eruv. In other words, they would accompany, each group of elders would accompany him 2,000 amos, right? But they can accompany another 2,000 amos, so they can make an Eruv Tchumen. So if you only need half as many huts, instead of needing 10, you only need 5, because each set of elders will accompany 4,000 amos by an Eruv Tchumen. Now, Amar lo Eliezer B'ni, so Rabbi Yossi says, Eliezer, my son, said, truth is, you don't need more than 2 huts. Because of an Eruv. Because the way it works is that you make the first hut 4 meal away from Yerushalayim. Because the people in Yerushalayim would accompany him 2 meal, right? One meal they could go anyway, another meal they make an Erev Tchumen. And the people from the first hut, some people first hut would have made an Erev Tchumen to go 2 meal back towards Yerushalayim and bring him from there to their hut. And other people in the same hut would have made an Erev Tchumen forward to accompany him the next 2 meal, right? And that way you already covered 6 meal, right? And then the people at the second hut would have made Erev Tchumen to come back 2 meal. That's 8 meal, right? And then the people in the next hut would have made an Erev Tchumen to go forward another 2 meal, right? 10. So you can get 10 meal between 2 huts and cover the whole distance, okay? I don't know if they actually did it, but the point is, you didn't actually need 10 huts. Even 2 would have sufficed, okay? About Kosu V'Sukkah, and each and every sukkah, he came to Amr, we say to him, Harei Mosam V'Rei Maim. Here's food and here's water. Not that he needed it, they never needed it, but rather Yapos is Kocho, to give him more strength. Lamho, why? She'en Yetzar HaTorev El Dava Shu Asalo. The Yetzar only desires something which is forbidden for it. Kada, like a similar like a case, Rabbi Mana Solig Levak Rabbi Chagai. Rabbi Mana went to visit Rabbi Chagai on Yom Kippur. The Avatashis. Rabbi Chagai was weak. Amar Leis, Rabbi Mana said, Tzachina, I'm thirsty. Amar Leis, Rabbi Mana said, so Rabbi Chagai said to him, should say you are permitted to drink. I guess he told us Sakara. Shav gave an achas, so Rabbi Mana went downstairs. Basar Shah, so a certain time, bad later, he came back to Rabbi Chagai. Amar, so he said, Rabbi Chagai asked him, did you drink? What happened to your thirst? Amar, so he said, Kachariously, when you permitted me to drink, psychologically, Ozla my thirst went away. Because, I was only thirsty because I couldn't drink. Once I could drink, so I wasn't so thirsty anymore. That doesn't work with caffeine. In any event, Rabbi Chia Barba, having Mishtoya the Nuvdar, Chia Barba said another story. Chad Barnasha Malach B'Shul, a certain person was walking in the marketplace. According to the Karbreda, Pnei Moshe was on Yom Kippur, but not necessarily. Mashbiach says it wasn't. How Bartei made his daughter was with him. Amarle, so Amarle Bartei, his daughter said to him, Abba Tzachyu Ana, I am thirsty. Amarlo, so he said, Orchin Sivchar, wait a little bit. Again, Amarle, Abba Tzachyu Ana, I'm thirsty. Amarle, so he didn't give her a time, he just said, Orchin Sivchar, wait a little bit. Umeisa, she died. Okay, so the moral of the story is, if you know that when it's coming, then you survive. But if you don't know when it's coming, even if they just tell you wait a little bit, since it's open-ended, it's a very dangerous thing. Rabbi Yacha kan mafani musar Yacha, when it used to turn to Musaf in the afternoon of Yom Kippur, have a Amar Kumeir, and he used to say in front of the assembled multitudes in Shul, Achenon, our brethren, Mandi Islay Manik, somebody who has young children, literally nursing children, but it means young children, Yezel Beginei should go home because of this child and make sure the child eats. So Mashbiach says we see even then they were in shul all day on Yom Kippur, and therefore they have to be sent home to feed the kids. Okay? Umaya Osa, what would he do when he got to the cliff? Cholak Lashon Shalzoris, he split up the red thread. Chetzio kosher b'sel, half it he tied to the rock, v'chetzio kosher ben karnav, and half it he tied between the horns of the sawyer, the dochel achorav, and he pushed it backwards. Nitzkal gvir, it would roll down the mountain. Lo magil machtisar, wouldn't get halfway down. Achu nase vorin, before it became splattered into limbs. Bav yashav lo atach the sukkah chorna, then he came and sat under the last sukkah, achu techshach until nightfall. Meim osai metam godim. From when is he matame his clothes? B'shiyatza chomos Yerushalayim, the minute he leaves Yerushalayim. Sheromer b'shas the chiyasu tzuk, from the time he pushes it off the mountain. Okay. Originally, all the Jews in Yerushalayim, I guess, or maybe throughout Eretz Yisrael, would tie these red threads in their windows. Some of them would turn whiter, and some of them would turn redder. Right? And everybody was embarrassed. I mean, at least the ones whose ones remained red. So they started tying this thread only at the opening of the Heichal. However, sometimes go white, sometimes they remain red. So that was, also difficult for them to see. So then they put it on the rock by the where they pushed it off the cliff, so people wouldn't have to see. See, it says, let us go and test out the matter, etc. Right, it says, right? Means even have so many sins that they're like kashanim, it's like the amount of years it takes to walk between the heavens and the earth, which is a lot of sins. Nevertheless, kashel yalbinu. Nevertheless, they become white like snow. Yaiser mikan. If it's worse than that, and of course there's a symbolism there, right? Because Averos can break the connection between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then you can still do tshuva properly and make the sins white. But if the Averos have done worse and they've damaged you spiritually, that's what it means, that they exceed the difference, the distinction between Shamayim and Aretz, then of course it's pretty bad for you. And even if you can get rid of them, it's only you, they won't become completely white like driven snow, but they'll only become pale like wool, which is not completely pure white. Okay? Rabbi Yeshua, if your chatoim will be like the years, kishnei avos harishonim, in other words, like the amount of years of the avos harishonim, then of the Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Kishel, Yalbinu. It's interesting, the amount of years of avos is more than the amount of years between Shamayim and Aretz. The amount of years between Shamayim and Aretz is given as 500. The amount that it takes to walk in 500 years. The total sum of all the lives of all the avos is 502 years. So obviously that's even higher madrega. In other words, even if you damaged your relationship with the Shamayim, you damaged yourself, right? But still, it means the Averos are more severe than what coming out to Shamayim. But still, as long as you still have a shaychus to the avos, right? It's chus avos of Ram Yitzchak and Yaakov, that can overcome the difference. It's only once you've transgressed the even greater sum of Averos, 2 more, right? 2 more years, so to speak, that at that point, forget it. We can't make you white anymore. Pure white, we can only make you partially white like wool. Now, what else has the gematria of 502? You just told me this the other day.
Oh, yeah. Haman,
Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai. So the famous chat, the Chai initially is until you can't tell the cheshbon that both Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai are 502. Now it's interesting. I don't know what the correlation is, but the years of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov taken together is the same number, 502, as the Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai. So you have till next point to think of a pshat. Gives you a long time, but there must be some correlation there. Okay.
I know that 500 is the number between.
It's given elsewhere. In Masechta Brachos, I think it's given as the difference between Shamayim and Aretz. It's not. It's obviously a symbolic number, right? Because it exceeds all 400, right? Exceeds the alphabet, right? Right. So that's the symbolism of the number. But in any event, that's not given here, of course. Again, Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Im Yucha Ichatoichem Kashanim Kishnei Avos Harishonim Kashel Yalbinu. They'll still become white like snow. Im Yadimu Katolah. If they're redder than that, like a worm, Katzemer you, then they're going to only be like wool. Amar Yidar Apazim Yuchatoichem Kashanim Kashel Yalbinu. They'll be called the I don't know. Not everybody learns this way, but to me it's pashut. It's like the Gilead Ephraim means in the first base of Mikdash they achieve greater kapara. Or Rishona means in the first base of Mikdash. Yimiadimu katola katzermi you, that's B'Sheni, that's the second base of Mikdash. Because the base of Mikdash didn't have such great kapara. Rabban Amri Bizman Sham Nosu Shon the Kifi Shonav. Very interesting carbonator. He says when the Averos of a person like his years, katzermi you, that the carbonator changes the gears. It says if they're kafi shonav, then they'll be kashel galbinu. If they're more than that, then they're katzemer you. What he means is like this: avanos shon the fi shonav means youth, younger people are more prone to Averis of Taiva, right? Because they're youthful hormones, right? So if it's Averis, let's say a youth sins in matters of Taiva, so then he can achieve full kapara, right? Like the snow, because his Averis are kafi shanav. But if you have a dirty old man who's sinning the same sins as the young guy, forget it. Because at that point, obviously, his rishus is very, very strongly entrenched, because the kafi shana, based on his years, he shouldn't have the same typhus anymore. If he has them, it means that there's much more rishus there, and therefore he can only become like wool, not like snow. Okay? It's a nice pshat. I don't remember anything like that ever in the Bavli, but that's Yerushalmi. Okay. Now we get back to the hard stuff. Fortunately, we're not going to do very much of it tonight. Bala Eitz HaSapar. Not hard, just not I got it anymore. Bala Eitz HaSapar comes back to the par, Eitz HaSoyer, and to the Soyer Lashem, and they're both dead now, of course. They've both been shechted. And it's rough, and now they must be burnt. Koran, so you rip them open. Botias and Raim, you take out the Murim. Nas and Megas, you put them into a tray. The Iktina Gar Mizbech, you put them in his bech. Kol Maklos, you tied the carcasses, the now slaughtered and emptied carcasses, on b'maklos, on sticks, and you sent them out to be burnt in the base of Sreifa, the place out of Yerushalayim where these carcasses were burnt. Now the people who bore these carcasses, they also became tamei, like the people who took the Sar Mishtalech. From when? Once they leave the wall of the Azara. Once they leave actually the wall of the Azara to go out of Yerushalayim in order to bring the stuff to be burnt. No, much later, only Mishiyatis or Bruban, once the fire has consumed the majority of each of the carcasses taken out. Bolo eats a part of a chuli. And it comes back to his bull. Anatina bolo eats a part of Eitzel Sawyer Hanisrafin. So we learned in our Mishnah over here that he comes next. The next stage is he comes to his bull and to the goat, which now have to be burnt. However, East Tiny, there's another brisa which says, at this point he went to lane. He went to lane before getting to the burning the sword. So Amrai B'Yechina said, it seems like the pasuk is in line with our Mishnah, because the pasuk says, the person who sends the sword la'azazel, Yechabes b'gadav, he should wash his clothes. Okay, that's the person who sends the sword la'azazel. Maxi Vasei would say immediately afterwards, Vesparchatos v'sir chatos. So you go back to the par and the sawyer of the chatos. So it means there's no kriya mentioned in between. So it sounds like kriya does not come in between. I remember said no. I feel kehain. It can even go like we said. Kehain means not Kohen, but kehain like this. Kehain the Tanya Barya, like that which we learned in the Tana Barya, the external brisa, meaning that we learned in the brisa that the kriya of the parasha comes in between at this point. Well, how so? How can it even work out? It sounds from the pasuk like we're going immediately from the soyer la'azazel to burning the soyer and the par, the soyer la'Hashem and the par. So it says more. No, it's like ka'anash desag b'tveria l'tziporin. It's like a person going from Tveria to Tzipori. Adu b'Tveria, even when he's still in Tveria, they say b'Tziporin Yosef is already on his way to Tzipori. And this is important. The way I would touch it up, although Carbonate, unfortunately, say differently. What it means is that when you go from Tveria to Tzipori, there's cities in the middle, right? There are cities in the middle between Tveria and Tzipori. But when a person leaves Tveria, even before he left, the person's on his way from Tveria to Tzipori, people say, he's going to Tzipori. Right? And that's because that's the next major stop. So to here, the pasuk doesn't describe the minor stop in the middle of Kriya Satorah, right? It just describes the next major stop, a major step in the process, which is to go from the sending of the Soyer La'azazel out to go to the burning of the Soyer La'Hashem and Soyer La'azazel. But Ein Achanami, there could be Kriya in the middle. It's just not mentioned because it's not as significant as the starting point and the ending point, so to speak, the bookends of which surround the Kriyas HaParsha. Okay? Yosef Rebbe Zikar, Rabbi Zirkon Omar, that Rabbi Zira Shal, Rabbi Zirkon said, Rabbi Zira asked, Parim Yisrafim, Sirim Yisrafim, the Parim Yisrafim, Sirim Yisrafim, Shenitmu, they became Tomei themselves, the carcasses somehow became Tomei. Ma'ushi Sarvakum Mitzvasim, do we burn them in the normal fashion? Now, the question is like this: if an animal became Tomei, a normal animal became Tomei, any animal became Tomei, before it was to be burnt outside the base of Mikdash, and that's usually the Par Helim Davar and Par Mashiach, which are brought also, their blood goes inside, because any blood which goes inside, so the carcass of the animal is burnt outside the Hazara. It's an interesting concept. If the blood is burnt, if the blood is not brought inside, but it's done on Mizbeach HaChitzon, so then the carcasses are not burnt outside Yerushalmi. They're burnt in the Hazara itself. Similarly, if carcasses become Dameh, even the carcasses of animals which went inside the Kodesh, they're burnt in the Hazara. They're not burnt in the special designated place outside Yerushalmi. So Shaila is, what happens if the if Yom Kippur became Tomei? Right, the carcass, not the korban itself, the carcass. So where do you burn it? Do you burn it outside Yerushalmi, as is its mitzvah, or do you burn it in the Hazara because it's like anything else which became Tomei? So it says, Marmat Tzvicholei. What's the question? Tabalamei Ralph. When do we ask the question? Shenit Mulifne Zrika, when it became Tomei prior to Zrika Saddam. Which the carcass became Tomei prior to Zrika Saddam, right? So of course, in that case, the question is where you burn the carcass. Because if they came Tomei after Zrika, at that point it got the status of being a bona fide korban. So then its status is that it's even doichatuma, right? It's memordo, it's the proper time af b'Shabbos. Memordo af b'tuma. Memordo means the proper time of tuma, and therefore right now we would say too much b'tibur. Again, since you started the process and you slaughtered it, and you got that far, you became tummy. We say too much b'tibur, and you can go burn it in a normal location, right? However, our child is became tummy before Zrika. So then, what's its status, right? It hasn't yet had tumah hutra b'tibur applied to it. So we say nevertheless we burn it in a proper place, or we burn it now in a place in the Hazara. So it says more Rabbi Yossi said, but the Ada, and now the all the Mefarshim put in the lace ksiv bahon b'moado, doesn't say b'moado by them, doesn't say make it b'moado at its right time, which means even b'tumah. Late shma min oklum, by them we cannot derive anything. Meaning that if they become tummy, their carcasses become tummy, even after Zrika Saddam, you can't burn them in the Torah place out to Yerushalmi, a specially designated place. Why? Because burning a special designated place implies too much b'tzibur. Because the specially designated place is a place of Tahara. It was a Torah place. It's called a Makam Tar. So to burn something tummy there can only be permitted in the context of too much b'tzibur. But Tumah B'tzibur is talking about a case where it says b'mohado. It says do it at its proper time, even if it's Shabbos, even if you're tummy. That doesn't apply to Par Kohen Mashiach, Par Elim Davar. There, if people are tummy, just wait till it become Tor. There's no moado. It's not a proper time, and therefore there, even if it became tummy achar Zrika, after Zrika Saddam, you can't burn it in the Torah place, right? It has to be burnt where in the Hazara. Okay? On Ramana said, Lo mismana Rabbi Yossi Rabbi. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi did not refrain from Kayim Hacha, right? From saying the same thing by Par Kohen Mashiach. In other words, that they both, in other words, he says that Rabbi Yossi my Rebbe would say that Par Kohen Mashiach also, or Par Eda, if he became tummy after Zrika Saddam, you burn in the Makam Tar, because then already like it's a maskam and mitzvah only lo gemor, right? He started doing it the right way and got beyond Zrika, which is the ultimate kapara. So then you just finish it, even became tummy in the Makam Tar. V'amar lei, and the gears here, according to the Korban, should be that Rabbi Bun Bar Chia said to him, no, said to him, Ki aim b'Par Mashiach ve'eda. He said that by Par Mashiach and Eda, by Par Mashiach and Eidah. I think I got it backwards. Sorry. The way Amalei Lamisa came Hacha means he learned that even the par, not the par, not that he learned that there's no difference that the other direction, not that the par Eidim par Kohen Moshiach Lachar Zrika. I don't remember what I said before. I think I learned it totally wrong. I apologize. Just forget if you have not yet forgotten. Forget already what I said before. What I meant to say is this. Rabbi Yossi said that the same is true both by Par Kohen Mashiach and Par Eidah and Par and Sar Yom Kippur. They become Tamei. Then you burn them all in the Beis HaMikdash. In other words, you don't say too much Rebbe Tzibur in this aspect. Too much Rebbe Tzibur will allow you to burn them in the Torah place. You don't say that. You burn them all in the non-Torah place, or I should say not the non-Torah place, but the place designated to burn non-Torah korbanos, which is in Nazorah, and you don't bother taking them out. That's our mother said, name Rabbi Yossi's Rebbe. Lo mitzvah Rabbi Yossi Rebbe came hacha. V'amarlei, sorry, Boom Bar Chia said to him, came b'par Moshiach Veda, you misheard. We only said that we don't say too much Rebbe Tzibor and by the Par Kohen Mashiach and Eidah. There he said that they get burnt in Azor if they become Tomei. But if the Par of Yom Kippur and the Sar of Yom Kippur become Tomei, then too much Rebbe Tzibor, because it says Moado, and then you can burn it in the proper place outside Yerushalayim as if it was still tar. Okay? So he said, so there was a machlokas exactly what Rabbi Yossi said. I will stop here for this evening, but I did want to point out, I did make a mistake last night, and a minor one, but a mistake nonetheless. I realized it when I was preparing Bavli for today, but I didn't get to there in the Bavli. If you take a look back on Lamed Aleph from the base, we said there, at the top, those have to be, you have to properly no, I changed the next line. Those done outside the big day Zav, it doesn't matter. And those are done outside big day Zav, it makes no difference. Now, the change in gears is carbonate, he changes gears to be big day love on outside, right? But I said that Tosefta and others still have the gears as it is in front of us, big day Zav. And I said that means that anything done, even in the big day Zav outside, you have to do it in the proper order. But that is not true. It means not anything done in the big day Zav outside, but rather the avodas of Yom Kippur outside. Okay, in other words, if you did muffed up the order of the Chveis, the Talmud, and the Haktoras, the Hatavas Haneros, and the Ktores, that doesn't concern us even on Yom Kippur, right? You can change the order, it doesn't matter. The only matters vis-a-vis the special avodas of Yom Kippur, which were done, and then I could say, even those special avodas of Yom Kippur, which were done in big days of outside, they're ma'akev the order to be done. But it's not the avodas done by the regular avodas of day to day, which just happen on Yom Kippur to be done by the Kohen Gadol. Those can be done out of order, and it's not a problem. Okay? That's it for this evening. Before your eyes glaze over completely. I'm going to finish. I know.